Jey meets with Sami Zayn outside, and he says that he can't imagine that Roman is going to forget what Jey did at the Royal Rumble, and he thanks Jey for what he did, coming to his aid, and said something huge is going to happen in 8 days. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, but I'm telling you, I'm going to do it. And you don't have to go down with the ship. And if we never get to talk like this again, I acknowledge you. And he puts his fist out, and Jey says, Sami, you got to get out of here. And then he fist bumps Sami Zayn. And I think that this will be a moment that people will go back to as the last time that these two shared this moment of friendship. Because I think it's going to come crashing down way. And there are going to be some broken hearts when this happens. But I think you could also do it in such a way that it's like there is definitely a value to this. Number one is a feud, but down the road, sometime these two coming back together, I think you could do way, way down the road where this is always like, yes, Jey is choosing his family, but he knows that, you know, I had to choose my family, and that's how it can play out. But for the short term, it's beneficial that he is aligned with the bloodline, and then you get Owens, and I think you can do a lot with these two. But this is, to me, a really compelling post-Mania feud of Zayn and Jey. Whether it's in a tag format or on their own, I think it's compelling enough.
I think there's enough like sort of chemistry there that you can build a years-long relationship similar to what, you know, Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens have. Like, these two have already been through a whole lot together, and I don't necessarily see, you know, their story just wrapping up at the end of, you know, these couple months. I really love this scene. You know, again, Jey Uso's acting, I think, really deserves to be commended. You know, he only had one line here, but I think his body language throughout Sami Zayn's entire, you know, dialogue, the facial expression from Jey, I thought it really captured sort of like the mental anguish he had in his mind about where his predicament is right now, in choosing between family or choosing between Sami Zayn. I don't think it's a case of like, you know, him swerving Zayn with like this fist bump. I think it's him truly not knowing where he should go. And he doesn't know right now. I thought the line from Zayn about how I know you've wanted to see this for a long time, referring to Roman's downfall. It's a really loaded line, and I thought it was really kind of key here because it's a callback to Jey's own history with Roman Reigns and gives the audience some exposition about private conversations, presumably Jey and Sami Zayn had, about wanting to see Roman's eventual downfall. So I think it told you a whole lot about, you know, their connection together, and also what's been going through Jey Uso's mind that we haven't necessarily seen on camera.
Yeah, it was a great scene, and one of those scenes where you say to yourself of, well, are the Bloodline watching this? And this actually, for the first time ever, they acknowledge this. And that's to come later. And the last scene, Jimmy is watching the monitor, and Paul Heyman walks in and says hello to Jim Uso. And he spoke to Roman Reigns, and he was right about Jey being loyal. And he tells Jimmy that we've got everything covered next week. We want you and Jey to stay home and watch on television next week. Because sometimes you see things on television that you don't see live.
Yeah. His strategy, I mean, what a smart man here, Paul Heyman, you know? He decided to watch the TV show.
After all these years, somebody figured out, wait a minute, I could be 2 steps ahead of the game by watching all these backstage segments that...
So now, does this tell me, like, is he fully aware that there's a camera filming him backstage with Roman Reigns at all times?
This certainly does bring in some incredible, gigantic gaps in WWE history, I would say, that we have now established that you can watch. It is fair game now that anytime something happens on screen, everyone should know about it.
In this scene right now, are they fully aware that there's a man standing, you know, like a few inches in front of them with a camera and a lighting guy and all that?
Well, yes, you have to be now.
I guess, you know, this is maybe points for Tony Khan's sort of insistence on explaining the invisible camera. Maybe they need their own Brandon, the Bloodline.
Yeah, I can't say if, like, I always bring up like that point, but once you introduce it, it's like you're all in at this point, and you kind of open yourself up to future criticism because there's going to be millions of segments that performers are going to be unaware of on this show. So
most people aren't thinking this deeply.
They are. Both companies are thinking at this level in different ways.
I'm saying, at least I'm saying the casual viewer who's like, just watch SmackDown. They're gonna let this pass, and I don't think it'll bother them that much. But I don't know if he needed to go there. Like, clearly we saw Paul Heyman listening in on the conversation. And I think he could have simply said like, "I heard you" or something.
Do we also have to go with the impression that Zayn and Jey willingly had this conversation in front of a camera?
Yeah. I don't know, John.
Like, this didn't magically air on television.
Yeah.
I don't know how much I like this when you actually break it down. It's like it calls it out. Like, your audience, especially in WWE, your audience understands. Like, this is a show, and we're not pretending that this is being broadcast everywhere. Like, your audience is going in with that thought. AEW makes a concerted effort. They always refer to the camera. Mm-hmm. Even tonight when Dustin gets attacked and the moguls are in, and they refer to the camera to shoot this. In WWE, like, they have established their own rules. So now you have called that out, and it kind of just blurs it, and it does make it silly when you're imagining Zayn and Jey had this private, hidden conversation on national television.
Right. Maybe there's only one TV set back there, and it's like in Gorilla, and only Paul Levesque has access to it, and all the talent. They know that they're being filmed, but nobody gets to see it. So nobody's privy to the conversations. But Paul Heyman happened to find his way in front of an actual TV set. Or maybe he logged into Sportsnet. And,
he wouldn't have seen it then. That would have been hilarious if this was happening in Canada, and then they have a logical reason why Roman and them couldn't have seen this. Wrong week, though.
I mean, again, are most people who are watching this spending like 10 minutes like dissecting it? I don't know. But you're right. Like, if our job here is to poke holes at the logic, and there was certainly
if Heyman doesn't use this line, we're not poking holes in any of this.
Sure, absolutely.
They introduced this. Like, this is the concept. It's like, we saw this segment that you guys were secretly having a conversation on national television.
It would be great if, like, in this scene, they just like Heyman
looked
says
at the camera,
and then
Heyman winked,
and then they're like, "Yeah, oh, there's a guy standing in front of like us for the past 30 seconds."
Well, there you have it.